When the PCI Security Council talks about the potential risk to evidence reliability and assessment assurance in the review of data, it's talking about what's the negative of reviewing data remotely. You might be doing a live session with a client where you're reviewing data, but you also might be looking at something that they've sent you or some evidence that they've provided through a tool without the context of where the data came from. And this is the potential risk for the evidence not being reliable. The council ranks it as a medium risk. And they do so because there's a reduced ability to confirm the origin of the evidence. Where did this evidence come from? When did it generate it? And which system generated it? There's also a reduced ability to confirm how the evidence was generated and by whom. What controls were in place when this evidence was accessed and produced. Sometimes that can be very important for an auditor to understand. And you're really putting a heavy reliance on the auditor at that point to look at this evidence and have a detailed understanding of the environment and define exactly what's going on in the environment. It's just in a vacuum sometimes when you're looking at this remotely collected evidence. And I can think one time about an organization that showed us some log data. And in that log data, we identified systems that had not been previously disclosed in some of the other audit activities. And this was a live review. This was walking through how logs were stored and collected and how they were synchronized and correlated, those types of things. And it was there that we identified some very critical systems that were sending the logs that had not been located on documentation that we reviewed, network diagrams, had not been discussed in any previous interviews with the client. And so the review of that data can be very important to help corroborate information. In walking through that in a live way with a client, you also expose certain control failures, walking through how people access the logs, how people access their video archives, how people manage the logical access permissions that they grant and remove them. Watching people do that as opposed to just looking at logs offline exposes a lot of interesting information that should be tested and should be discussed with the client. And so that's why there is a medium risk, as the council says, to evidence reliability. And so you should consider allowing your auditor privileged access in order to walk through where this data comes from with you.